Hello and welcome to Space Between Ideas. I'm in the gym again and getting ready for another fantastic episode here on Space Between Ideas. Now remember the idea, the space between ideas, right? So the thing is, what we're doing here is we're trying to develop your thinking skills. And we're putting some structures into your mind, some thinking tools, some themes. You know, we're talking about 101 themes to talk about business. And the idea is that by putting in these structures in your head, then you're going to have some methods for thinking and then coming up with some ideas. Remember the idea of sharpening the saw? So you tune into my show and you listen to the themes from the book Create Crucial Insight by Dr. Thomas Buchholz, and this is the space, right? So we created this space where you can have some structure, and then, you know, you're going to come up with some ideas. Now, remember, there's a little bit of space between ideas. You got one idea, then there's a space, and then there's another idea. So this is the space where you can come up with some structures to help you get to better ideas, more often have ideas. And hopefully these ideas are developed using insight. Maybe you can say that ideas are the insight. Maybe you can say that developing the ideas is based on insight. And this is the space where you can come and develop those thoughts. Now, today it's like I'm kind of in the mood to go deeper. Now, did you watch the movie called Inception? So, I don't know if you understood the movie, I don't know if I understood the movie, but it seems as though in the movie Inception, they go into a dream, and then when they're in that dream, they go and they put themselves into a deeper dream, and then when they're in that second level of the dream, then they finally put themselves into a third level of a dream. So, like on Earth, their physical body is there, and then the dreaming body in the first dream goes to sleep. So they have a physical body that's asleep, and they have a dreaming body that's asleep. And then into the second dream, you have the body. Then they put that body asleep, and then they're into the third dream. There's one physical dreaming body, there's two dreaming bodies, and they're in the third dream. Now, why is this relevant for us? Because we've been talking about the state impact checklist, the checklist that helps us to evaluate courses of action for a couple of weeks now. And we talked about state teamwork. And then from state teamwork, yesterday, the last couple of days, we started talking about the state drive checklist. Now, if you have state impact, so when you're trying to evaluate courses of action, then we created this list of like teamwork. All right, so usually when I work with customers, clients, when I work with people, what's happening often, specifically with the state drive checklist, is they want to know how to either improve their own motivation, they want to feel like they are working towards something important, or they want to influence the motivation of the people on their team. All right, so yesterday we were talking about characterizing attitudes, right? So hold on, let me get this one. So, all right, so yesterday, let's see how we can do this. There you go. All right, so yesterday we were talking about the state drive checklist, and we have the levels of success on the bottom, and then on the left we have the levels of effort. So if we're talking about the levels of success, then we have trailing and leading. If you're in a leading position, then that's fantastic. If you're in a trailing position, probably you want to improve that. And often when I'm talking to people, they tell me that they have people on their team that are kind of in a trailing position. And then on the left side, we have levels of effort. So here we have diligent at the top, up here, and then we have laid back. And so the thing is, if you have some guy on your team who is laid back and who is also trailing, then they are currently in this place called recollecting. Now, that can be a bad thing if you have a guy on your team who is recollecting, because recollecting means that he is comparatively feeling complacent about trying to succeed. And he's also not really developing the skills necessary in order to succeed. And he's not developing them fast enough. So as you can see, the question that people are always trying to figure out is, how do I move a guy from recollecting up to this S? All right, so S means striving. So if you are in a trailing position, but you are working relatively diligently, that means that you are striving. All right, so today we are going to talk about striving. Now, all right, so like imagine you were talking about the state teamwork checklist. And okay, so you have your team, right? So you have you on one side, and then you have members of your team next to you. Because the first step of the state teamwork checklist, as you remember, is to put a name or description of the people on your team. Then you can put your outcome, the outcomes that your boss wants from you, and then you can put the outcomes that you want from the guys on your team next to you on that piece of paper. Then you can put the reuses that your bosses want from you, and then you can also put the reuses that you want from your teammates next to you. And then, what was the next one? So then, of course, there are the actions which you engage in to support each other. So those are the things that how you are working specifically with each other, how you are working with your boss, and also how then you are working with the colleagues on your team. And then you also write the other actions which these people need to do in order to succeed in this endeavor. Now, on the next level, we go into this idea of entity personas. All right, so maybe there's a guy on your team, like he's a programmer, he's also inspecting things, he's also quality control, he's also talking to the client. All right, so what are the various and specific entity personas where he is expressing his roles? And then what are the specific entity personas where you are expressing your roles? And then within those entity personas, what is the work that you do? What is the work that he does? What is the work that I'm trying to do? What are the work that we're all doing in order to support each other? Now, this is where people are talking to me. They're saying, hey, there's a guy on my team, and when I list all of his roles, and I list all of the work that I want him to do, then I notice that he is currently here. He is, in his level of success, he is trailing. All right, he's relatively complacent about trying to improve, and also his level of effort, it's not diligent, it's kind of laid back. So he is currently in this recollecting box. And I would like to, so this is where we come up with well, I asked him this question. Is it easier to go from trailing to leading, or is it easier to go from laid back to diligent? Now, that's maybe the wrong question, like what's easier? Because the whole idea is that it's not really possible to go directly from trailing to leading. All right, so let's take a look at our other whiteboard. So on this whiteboard, on this one, see, this is the one we were talking about before. It's a kind of a big confusing mess, right? So down here we have the endeavor element, shaping potential. Then we have form agendas, and then we have create effects. These are the three endeavor elements that we talked about in the first couple videos of this series. Then we have the state progress checklist. So we're talking about involving resources, we're talking about affecting motivations, exciting motivations, we're talking about guiding interactions, we're talking about making assumptions, building some scenarios, choosing your plans, performing your actions, recognizing your outcomes, and then eventually to foster reuses. All right, so if you think about like the state teamwork checklist, we were talking about like, all right, so the name of the entity is here, and then the outcomes that you want from that entity are here, the reuses you want are there, and then the actions to support each other. Now you have the actions to support each other and then other actions. Now those actions, of course, they can be separated into your entity personas and then all the different types of work that you do. Right, so here's that thing. It's like, can you move from R, recollecting, directly over to a leading position? No, you can't go directly from a trailing to a leading position. Now, the general way that you try to take a leading position is you have to increase your diligence. You have to become more diligent. And as you become more diligent, sometimes some of the people are going to then experience more success and have more of a leading position. All right, so this is how those two things go together. So if you're doing the Excel spreadsheet here, we're talking about the outcomes, right? We're trying to improve the outcomes from our team. And in order to do that, we're starting to work with drive or motivation. Now, why did I talk about this idea of the movie where there's a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream, this Inception idea? It's because the thing is, like, if I want to talk about exactly how to move from a generally laid back position to a generally diligent position, we're talking about down here in the shape potential area. All right, so the guys in our team already have resources. So what we're trying to do is actually and then we don't even really need to talk about guiding interaction because you're the boss and they are the subordinate. And then you have a boss and you are the subordinate to your boss. So what we're talking about here is actually exciting motivation. This is in the shape potential area. So we want to shape the potential because if we can shape the potential, if we can get more diligence out of our team, it means that they are going to be more successful at developing some scenarios and also eventually performing those actions so that they can achieve those outcomes. So the question is, how do we get our teams to increase their level of effort? Right? This is a pretty important question. And why are we going dream inside of a dream inside of a dream? All right, so the first level, remember, was the state impact checklist. Now, in order to talk about the state impact checklist, then we're currently talking about the state drive checklist. Because technically we finished talking about the state teamwork checklist. So the first dream level is the state impact, talking about courses of action. The second dream level is here, the state drive checklist, talking about like when we are evaluating these courses of action, when we're like say we built our Excel spreadsheet with like 2 different people, we have 2 different ways that we can choose. Then right now we're in we want to go to the third level, which is one is just to characterize different companies. But if you're actually going to try to be making decisions, in order to increase the level of effort from a team member, then you're going to go to the next dream level, which is down here. All right, so excite motivations. All right, so tomorrow we are going to move eventually we're going to go back to the state drive checklist, and then we're eventually going to finish up the state impact checklist. But right now we're going a dream, state impact, inside of a dream, state drive, inside of a dream. We're going to a new checklist called what? How do we excite motivations? So the next checklist is called state purposes. The basic idea behind state purposes is that people are motivated by different things. Now, if these are the 3 endeavor elements, then it's also likely that what? Endeavor elements, all right? So people generally do these 3 things. And if you can identify what different team members are good at, or if you can identify what potential partners are really good at, then you'll understand how to motivate these people better, and you'll understand what types of work that you can give them and that they will excel at. So tomorrow, we're going to jump into the state purposes checklist. We're going to begin talking about purposes, about shaping potential. So I'm going to explain basically, again, we'll go through the endeavor elements and talk about what it means to have specific skills in one of these 3 areas. And then we're going to talk about one of the areas specifically that's related to shaping potential. There's about 4 or 5 different things we can talk about in shape potential. There's 1 or 2 things we can talk about with forming agendas. And there's 3 or 4 things we can talk about for creating effects. So we're going state impact dream inside of a state drive dream inside of a state purposes dream. We're going 3 levels deep. So I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. If you're having a problem following along, then you might have to start from the beginning again. Or, you can scroll down here below. There's a link to another website where you can book some time with me. We can have some discussions, and we can figure out how to help you understand these themes. Thank you for tuning in to Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates.